Okay, thank you. At the risk of eating into our presentation time, I want to do a quick show of hands on that previous presentation. Who uses a work group data coordinator, a work group server? Who uses a simulation controller and remote engines? And who uses the cloud? Okay, interesting. We've got a convoluted setup which matches that, and it's all entirely virtualized. And one of the reasons I'm here is because I want to speak to various people to improve it, because it still takes us 2.5 days to run a 360-minute integrated river and drainage simulation, which isn't good enough. Okay, so thanks for the introduction, Andrew. I've been modelling Gatwick's drainage system for the best part of 12 years. So yeah, it's been a journey that we've been on. Noemi's been working with me for 4 or 5 years, and we're going to take you through what we've been up to. Firstly, about Gatwick. It's Europe's busiest single runway airport. Up until last year, it was the world's busiest single runway airport. Mumbai's just knocked them off that perch, but Mumbai is building another airport and another runway, and they'll finish their runway before Gatwick gets their next runway. So Gatwick will be back at the top again. But it's busy. It's a really important airport. It wasn't the best place to build an airport. That's true for lots of airports, because they tend to be where it's flat tend to be floodplains. There are 4 rivers: the River Mole, the Gatwick Stream, the Crawters Brook, the Mans Brook. You've got steep-sided catchments of Crawley, which all drain down into the bowl, which is Gatwick at the bottom. Lots of tarmac, lots of concrete generating very fast runoff. Lots of hard-engineered watercourses. And huge amounts of polluting de-icer in winter, which is about at least 1,000 times more polluting than raw sewage. Just a bit about the drainage network at Gatwick. This bit drains to Pond A, and the way that the whole network works is, if it's clean water, it's discharged at greenfield or better than greenfield rates to the environment locally, so through A Pond, through M Pond, or through, let's just stop working, through D Pond. If it's polluted, if it's got de-icer in, then it's moved around the drainage system from A Pond to M Pond to D Pond, all the way through to the pollution storage lagoons. Is the radio mic working?
Yes.
Okay.
If you put it in the middle, sir, on your side, if possible.
Okay. Yep. Okay. And there's about 250,000 cubic metres of storage of polluted water, which then is treated at Crawley Treatment Works. What's happening at the moment? Gatwick has a single runway and a standby runway, and in the future that standby runway is being brought into full operation. That's what this modelling is in support of at the moment. Gatwick are going to be going to development consent order in September this year, consultation, so there's a lot of work to support that development. Gatwick had significant flooding in 2013. You probably remember the news stories. Some 13,000 passengers didn't get home for Christmas. It happened Christmas Eve. It was a pretty big disaster for Gatwick, and the Chief Executive of Gatwick does not want to have to go and speak to the Select Committee again and be asked why his airport didn't work. So we've been working with Gatwick since then. There have been some really quick wins, significantly improved resilience of infrastructure, and we've done an awful lot of modelling to better understand the risk. Gatwick have got huge amounts of data. They record lots and lots of data, and they record it really well. They haven't used that data very well for years. And what we're trying to do is to build a number of digital twins to represent that data and actually use it. So we've just finished verifying a 1D drainage model of some of the data. We had a flow survey. We've converted that to a 2D drainage model, and then we've integrated that with a river model. So we've got a fully integrated 2D drainage model of the airport. We've also taken the drainage model and created a pollution control model. So we modelled the de-icer. We've kept them separate because Once you add the water quality into the 2D, then the simulation times become totally unmanageable when we need to simulate a whole year's worth to simulate the environmental impact. So they've stayed separate. And we're starting to use those models now to do a number of different things and to provide lots and lots of information into the business, into the DCO process. I'm going to hand over to Noemi, who's going to talk you through the actual modelling that we've been doing.
Okay, thank you, Andy,
You're
for
welcome.
that. Well, I'm going to try to explain you all the things that we have been done during the last 2 years in order to update this model. Well, in terms of surface water model, first of all, we have to have clear what is our objective. So our objective is to provide flood mitigation options via a holistic strategy instead of assessing each of the developments individually. However, our client, Gatwick, wants to know what are the effects of the North Runway. For this reason, we have decided to develop this model using 2 stages. And stage 0, in which we want to have information about the risk of surface water flooding in general, and in stage 1, when we wish to want to understand which are the areas that are at risk of flooding. Okay. So, what we have been done for the stage 0? Okay, for the stage 0, we have been reviewing the model that was outdated by Halcrow in 2013. Moreover, we have been carrying out some gap analysis. This gap analysis mainly consists in understand what data is missing, what data we need to record to Gatwick in order to obtain and accomplish our objectives for the stage 1. Moreover, in that stage 0, we carry out a validation at the deep pond inlet. As Andy mentioned it, the deep pond inlet takes all the surface, or the majority of the surface water drainage from the Gatwick Airport. Okay, we do it that kind of validation only in one of the inlet ponds because it was the data that we have available at that stage. And well, according to the SIWEM urban drainage criteria, this validation was considered good. Okay, what we have now, our upstream part of the airport is still unvalidated. But however, as I said at the beginning, the stage 0, what we want to know is to understand what are the surface water flooding risk. So with that, we can consider that it's good enough. Moreover, since we want to advance to the stage 1, we want to know which areas are at risk from flooding. It's for this reason that we have been scope a flow survey. Okay, what we have been done in the stage 1? Well, firstly of all, we have been updating the model because the Halcrow model was doing with an old survey, Unistride from '96. We have been updating with the Manson survey that it was from 2010. Then Gatwick provide us some drawings of new assets, so we have been doing an extension of that model. The red circles is showing you which are our areas of extension, such the east of the railway, the south of the airport, the Fall Farm. Moreover, we also obtained a new DTM of 25 centimeter resolution. With this new DTM, we were able to update the boundaries of the catchments as well, together with the 2018 Ordnance Survey map, the land uses and the surface areas. As I told you, we also carry out a flow survey. I will explain a bit more in the next slide. But thanks to that flow survey, we were able to understand that there was base flow in the model, and we also able to put some silt in some of the pipes. Okay, so what I was saying before, okay, we carry out a flow survey. This flow survey was conducted in 29 locations, and it was conducted from July 2019 to November 2019. Moreover, we installed a new rain gauge in the end pond, here. And well, the data that we have received from the flow survey was considered good in terms of depth, but not good in terms of velocity. Moreover, we carry out a verification for 3 events. These events, of course, of different durations, of different intensities. And well, at least all the flow-through bays were in good performance for one of the events, as we can show here, between good and acceptable. Okay, this is the part related with the surface water. Now we are going to move to the river flooding, to the river model, sorry. So how we do that? In order to do that, we use the upper mole model that was done by CH2M in the past. Well, the thing that we have been doing that, it has been a bit of complications and frustrations because we were using the flood modeler model. And well, in order to do that, first of all, we need to delete several points of the cross sections on the flood modeler because they were taking flood plane, and we don't want here the part of the flood plane model it as a cross section. Moreover, in ICM, what we need is that our cross sections are georeferenced. And in the flood modeler, these cross sections were not georeferenced, so we need to previously work on that. And also, we have some problems in order to model it, some hydraulic structures, because both softwares do it in a different way. For instance, the bridges. InfoWorks ICM needs like 5 sections to model the bridges. In Flood Modeler, we don't have it, so we have to make some assumptions related to that. Yeah. And then the last part is when we are moving to the integrated part, when we put all together the surface water and the river model. Okay, why we are doing this? Well, mainly we are doing because, as I commented before, the fluvial model was developed in another software, Flood Modeler 2 Flow. It's a model that was approved by the Environmental Agency, so it's the model that we are using for prove all the fluvial mitigation options. But we need to understand these flood mitigation options in our drainage system. It's for this reason that we're doing that integration. Okay, we carry out the integration and we carry out interim verification. Well, as we can see from these results, in terms of depth, the verification was good. In terms of flow, some of the sections doesn't show very good results. It's something that we need to investigate further. The project is still in process. And also, we believe that could be because the structures are different model if we use a flood modeler to flow model than ICM model. Now, my colleague Andy is going to explain you the water quality, the future, and the next steps.
Just on that, the integrated flood modelling, we'd have loved to have shown you some maps, but because we're going to public consultation on the development consent order in September, then we can't actually show any of the flood modelling maps in the presentation that's going to be recorded. However, I'm hanging around later for a beer, so if anyone's in the bar, I can probably show the model working in real time if I can get a connection. The water quality modelling is the other complicated bit of it. It's all complicated at Gatwick, but modelling de-icer is really, really challenging. It's sticky, it's colloidal, it doesn't wash off with the first flush of rainfall. So how it transports through the system is, if you model it as a dissolved pollutant or if you model it as a solid pollutant, it doesn't work. So you need to do both. And we've ended up using 2 different sediment fractions and dissolved pollutant to get the right transport through the system. We've done that, but that's taken us probably 10 years of modelling to get it right. It's very, very challenging. But as I said before, what happens is when contaminated runoff is measured, so they've got BOD sensors across the airport. When de-ice is used, then it's captured in A pond. In the dirty side of M pond, this is partitioned, and in the dirty side of Dog Kennel Pond, so called because they used to have dog kennels at Gatwick, not because someone gave it a rather random name, and D pond. These letters there did used to be an A, B, C, E, F. This is how the airport has changed over time, that they've only got a few of them left. And then, so all the polluted water ends up at Deep Pond Lower, where it is pumped with a transfer pumping station, I've said, to these 2 pollution storage lagoons. How it's managed is really complicated. We've got something like 30 to 35 global variables in real-time control. We've got 16 regulators, and we're still missing a few. We validated the model against the winter 17-18, which was the beast from the east, so that's when pretty much the pollution storage lagoons were full at the end of the winter, because so much de-icer had been used. And if the system is full, then that's when it starts spilling contaminated water to the river, which is the one thing that Gatwick wants to avoid at pretty much all costs. The real-time control has been rather challenging to get right because it's BOD related. There are water quality variables, so unless you've got, and because there's a very long lead time in terms of how things drain, then there's a really complex interaction between those controls, between how the pumps operate, and therefore how a pond fills up with contaminated water. So if you don't get it right, then it doesn't operate right to the next time step. So it's really complicated to get that interaction right. But we have got there. So A pond catchment, M pond catchment. This is where it all ends up at D pond catchment, and then through to the treatment works at Crawley. We've got a modelling tool that we think we can trust, and we're using it to make better capital planning decisions as part of the development consent order process. So the mitigations, the additional treatment that's going to be needed for the de-icer. We've already improved resilience at Gatwick. There's work to do. It's fair to say that it's not protected to the standard of protection that the airport is aiming for, which is dry in a 100-year event and wet but working a 200-year event. We're not there yet. We're providing evidence to council as part of the planning process at the moment. And Gatwick desperately want to be a sustainable airport. I think that's a contradiction in terms. As an environmentalist, I never thought I'd be working with an airport. I don't fly for personal reasons, and yet I'm helping an airport expand and grow, which is a contradiction I kind of manage on a daily basis. But it is getting better at how they work within the environment. We've learned a lot over the last 10 years. Those 2 ones on the left, following on from the last presentation, there are things you can do with infrastructure to make it quicker, but it will still take longer than you think. There are things you can do to maximise the storage space, but it will still take more space than you think. We've got a 36 terabyte data store, and we're regularly needing to clear out data to manage the space that we have. So it's been a journey, it's been a frustrating journey, and we've still got things to learn. We want to have a digital twin which runs in real time, live. We can't at the moment, it's too slow for when you have the fully integrated model working. So we need to either improve our hardware, improve the model, or possibly move to an entirely different kind of digital twin, just a simulation package rather than an entire all pipe, all component model. We haven't made that decision yet, but that's the decision that we're actively making at the moment, how we can better represent the model in real time and make forecast predictions across the network. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.